we got to go live. All right, everyone. Good evening. This is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. Today, we're going to do our Friday roundtable. So we'll wait until people call in. We decided to do this because we think there's some very, very important developments taking place, and we want to give people the support and essentially the framework to understand what's going on in the world. And if you notice, the title of the talk that I did was a pretty bold title, which said the only way to end your confusion, despair, and suffering, a special event call in to share your views on what is to be done. And again, we made a very bold claim, which we're saying it's the only way. So why are we saying that? As many of you know, we are building a movement, a community, but providing the scientific framework for people to really understand what's going on in the world. And without this framework, people are essentially going to continue in confusion, despair, and suffering. And one of the interesting pictures that I wanted to bring up was this is a very interesting piece of art that the Fanatic Studio, Gary Waters, created, which I thought was a very interesting poster. Let me bring it up. And it sort of shares for the people on Instagram. Let me share it over there so you guys can see it a little bit better. And you'll see that it's a pretty interesting picture. And it really, I have it projected over here. And it's a bunch of people looking at the complexity of everything that's going on. And we call that stuff in our work on the right a system. Right? A very complex system, but it's such a wound up web of things that the average human cannot comprehend what's going on. And we're going to have a discussion today to share with everyone that you don't have to despair, that there is a way through this, through the science of systems and taking a systems thinking approach. It took me many, many years to develop this curriculum. I used to teach it at MIT, taught it in CME classes at Harvard, taught it all over the world. And this knowledge about understanding complex systems and making it through this maze of confusion is typically preserved for those in power and the elites. And those in power use this knowledge to essentially manipulate, subjugate, and take advantage of people. You know, just as a surgeon, Robin's actually a surgeon, is going to be joining us. You know, a surgeon can wield a knife to save life. A criminal can use that same knife to destroy life. But there is a science called the science of systems. And with that science of systems understanding, you can actually not live in this despair of not knowing what to do. And if you look at the data, what's going on right now, you'll see there's an incredible number. Oops, let me start live on Instagram. Forgot to start it live on Instagram. So those people on Instagram who are joining us and those people out, I just want to welcome the people on Instagram. We're having a conversation today on the only way to end your confusion, despair, and suffering. And it's a special event. We have a number of people. Let me just take it over here. Who are going to be joining us. Our Truth, Freedom, Health Warrior-Scholars. These are all working people. I'd add Robin over here from throughout the world. We have Maria Francesca joining us from Italy, Robin from up in Maine, Jason in Maine, Jill in Texas, and I'm here in Cambridge. So we'll come back to them. But today's conversation is really to talk about the only way to end your confusion, despair, and suffering. And to the people on Instagram, sorry I didn't share it with you, but what we started talking about was that this picture here really represents sort of the despair people are feeling. It was a photograph done by Gary Waters. And I think it pretty much says it all. It was done on November 17, 2019, but it's a zeitgeist of where people are. And the reality is when people can't make sense of stuff, what ends up happening to people is the following, right? You have massive amounts of anxiety now in the population, massive amounts of insecurity, discouragement, irritability, disinterest. And you can see all those things, nervousness, depression. All those things on the front part actually affect, from as we've taught, your health and your immune system. And far more powerfully than probably any virus or bacteria, et cetera. These go down to your nervous system, affect your gut, your brain, all those kinds of things. What's more interesting is this article that recently came out says, deaths of despair are rising. It's time to define despair. But what you can see, it's working people who are the most, it's not the educated elites, right? It's everyday working people, black and white, who are really being affected. Explosive number of deaths occurring because of despair. And so this is a reality, what's going on. So we live in a time of what we call complex systems. Everything around you is a complex system. Ukraine, Russia, what's going on? You know, Trump, Biden, election systems, China, Taiwan. You go through every political thing out there. The average person does not have the tools to understand what is going on. What they do have the tools to do is to be bucketed into either taking a left-wing position or a right-wing position, or being complacent, or becoming, as this slide talks about, going into total despair. And this maybe forces a 18-year-old kid to wield a gun who's working at Wendy's to go shoot up his class. All right. So those in power are very, very happy if you are on the left and you're supporting Trump or whatever part of the world you're in, some left-wing organization or party, or if you're on the right, supporting some right-wing organization, or if they really love it, if you just go into despair and decide not to do anything. That's probably the ideal that people really want. They don't want you to do anything. So either one of those people want, but among those four buckets, it becomes very, very valuable for people to use those conditions to basically manipulate people. So we want to talk about how do we get out of this. So what I'm going to do is in our roundtable, we're just going to do quick introductions, and Jason and Jill and Robin and Maria are going to basically share their backgrounds. And then I'm going to do a little bit of talk about what our movement is about, what we offer. And then each one of them is going to share with you how the knowledge of systems that they've learned has helped them. By the way, this knowledge of systems, I used to teach at MIT, taught it at major universities. It's not accessible to everyone. So those in power are able to use these systems of understanding to actually manipulate people, as we talked about. But let me just introduce our panel today, our roundtable. And by the way, our panel is everyday working people. We don't go get quote unquote experts from Harvard with their bow ties or Yale. Our intelligence comes from working people, as you're seeing, who learn this knowledge bottoms up by life and by applying these systems. So the lighting is great there, Maria. That was good, what you just had. So let me go over to Maria Francesca. Maria, can you just introduce yourself? Maria, if you can just introduce yourself, Maria, go ahead. Let me just unmute you. Go ahead, Maria. Can you just?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Can I start?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, just introduce yourself, Maria.
Okay. I'm from Italy. I'm from Sardinia. I'm 50 years old. I have got degree in law, and in 1998, and I sell houses and insurance and loans. But even 2 years ago, I started to go and fight for freedom and for health, trying to tell the people that all the things that mainstream tell us is completely false. If you want to know the truth, you have to hear what mainstream tells you, and is exactly completely different. So I'm trying to talk to people, everyone I know, and tell him that if you want to change his mind, the people must understand what is happening, and all the false information that mainstream tell us since we was born. And I'm trying to build a movement here in Sardinia, looking for I'm apologize for my English, and listen for what Dr. Shiva tell us, and trying to build a movement in Sardinia, and trying to study what Sardinia is, what is the Mediterranean Sea Sardinia is, our history, which is completely cancelled, and trying to wake up people. Okay.
Maria, can you turn on some light? Do you have a little bit of light there?
Pardon?
Do you have some light, la luz? Because
Yes.
it's a little, because
Don't you see me?
we can, but it was a little bit brighter before. Can you make it brighter?
Okay. Okay.
It's
I
okay.
put other lights. Okay.
Okay, we'll come
Wait a
back to you.
minute.
We'll come
Wait,
back to you. Thank you.
Yes.
We'll come back to you. So that's Maria Francesco. She's one of our Truth, Freedom, and Health warriors out of Sardinia, Italy. As she said, she's a lawyer, and she also is an activist on the ground. Let me go over to Robin Frost, who'll introduce herself. Robin, you can just introduce yourself, and they'll come back to all the things you've learned. Go ahead, Robin.
My name is Dr. Robin Frost. I'm a board-certified physician and surgeon, and I first met Dr. Shiva in March of 2020. Very much felt like I was the only one that understood really the factual information on what was going on with our immune health until I heard a video that Dr. Shiva put out and made perfect sense. And with all the lockdowns and the isolation and sending our my child home from school, I finally found somebody that actually was sharing factual information versus information that absolutely did not make any scientific sense. As we move forward with this understanding and developing this movement with the understanding of system science and how it plays in every aspect of our life and our personal health, but politics and running a business, and having an understanding that this is what is leading us to the truth, allowing us to continue with our freedom of ability to gain the truth and our health, which is what they are trying to take away from us. So
hey, Robin, we'll come back to that.
Isolate us and what.
Hey, Robin, we'll come back to that. I just wanted to do quick introductions. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we just wanted to do a quick intro, then we'll come back to what you guys have learned. Let's go to Jamie. Go ahead, Jamie. You just want to introduce yourself, Jamie, so people get an idea of who you are.
Yeah. My name's Jason. I live up in Maine, and I've worked a lot of different jobs. I actually lost a job because of COVID, so I just recently started a new job, and I'm working in a warehouse right now. And I've been with the movement for over 2 years now. I found Dr. Shiva at the beginning of COVID, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, that's me.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. Jamie, you also do welding, right? You have a bunch of skills.
Yeah, I did welding for a long time, and yeah, I don't do it right now. I got a job that's like 4 miles up the road from my house, with gas prices and everything, and you know, it just it's been working out pretty good. It's just warehouse work, but it's not bad.
Great. And let's go to Jill. Jill, if you could just introduce yourself, Jill, and so let people understand where you're from and what you do. Go ahead, Jill.
Yeah, I'm Jill Ashenfelter. I live in Hobbs, New Mexico, which is on the West Texas, New Mexico border. I'm an engineer, work in oil and gas, and specifically, I'm a project manager. So I build pipelines and boosters and work with lots of working people to make those things happen. I'm also a mother of 2 young adult sons and newlywed.
Wow, that's great. I didn't know that. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Okay. So we have some very different people on this call. We have a surgeon, a board certified surgeon. We have a Jason, who's a welder and works in a warehouse. We have an engineer, and we have a lawyer and an activist. Okay. So the reason I wanted to introduce our roundtable here is because we want to, and we're going to open up the phone line soon. We want to have a conversation here about the topic that we set forward in our conversation today was the only way to end confusion, despair, and suffering. So let me set the context before we go to each of our panelists. We're going to share how they overcame their despair, confusion, and suffering, how the knowledge that is right in front of us that our movement provides has enabled them to do that. So let me just take a little bit of a brief and go to a higher level on this. And I shared this with our team yesterday, I think yesterday, right? We did this. And what I wanted to let everyone know is imagine that you are 100,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, and you are quote unquote primitive man, I want to put double quotes around that, or woman, and you're looking at the stars and you're looking at all this phenomenon in nature, this thing, this bright thing coming up at one point and then setting called the sun, this birds flying, you see all these phenomenon and you're trying to figure this out. And either you're completely confused, you're in awe, maybe when there's rain and thunder, you're fearful, but you don't understand all this phenomenon taking place. And that's how human beings lived until probably a couple 100, 300, 400 years ago, okay? And during that period of human history, people were into listening to what someone else told them, right? So people got into the habit of getting into what people told them to think. They didn't have the tools on how to think, so they decided to do what others told them to think. So maybe one group of people told them, okay, the earth is the center of the universe and the sun goes around it, okay? So they became the, people who believed that the earth was the center, and then organizations, certain religious organizations profited from that. But certain people believed that. Other people may have believed that there was this dragon, that carried a ball of light across the sky. And they believed that, the dragon people, and so on. So there was a point in human history where people essentially were told what to think, not how to think. And you could think of that as the Dark Ages. But most people didn't even know that. But people lived in relative despair and awe of what they saw around us. And at some point in human history, what ended up happening was people started applying something called the scientific method. And the scientific method was basically this process. Hold on, Ken, you need to know the keys? No, you need to know the keys to go in and out of the back.
Yeah.
This is the keys, don't lose it, okay? All right, so you go out and you come back that way, okay?
Yeah.
But leave one of the doors open.
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
So you can get in and out. Okay. So what ended up happening with the age of science was we started applying the scientific method. And what the scientific method allowed us to do was to make guesses at why things were taking place. And then said you have to collect data, actual data, and see if your data matched your guesses. If it did, that means you would come up with an understanding of the universe. That became what was called the law. Okay? And the laws were constantly being tested. And if your data didn't match what you observed and you can explain it, it doesn't matter how good you looked, and it doesn't matter what family you came from, it was just wrong, as the physicist Richard Feynman said. You're just wrong. Okay? But through that process of observation, applying science, being honest, we came to understand many things. We came to understand why this object falls to the ground. It was called gravity. We came to understand why birds fly, and that helped us create flying machines. We came to understand something called electricity, and we built all this stuff around us. Everything you see around us came from people's names who you do not know who applied the scientific method. It didn't come from politicians. It didn't come from some people writing poetry, even though we love poetry. It didn't come from people being subjective or having wacky ideas. It came from hardcore scientific understanding, people who worked with their hands and people who had a direct understanding of the world around them. Now, think about where we're at today, in the middle of, I think, who was it? Was it you? Maria, you said, I try to read the information you see on mainstream media, right?
Yes.
We have so much information now. We have billions of videos, billions of blog posts, billions of articles. And I have to ask the question, in the midst of all of this information, are you healthier? Are you wiser? Are you freer? You have to ask this question. So I would argue that we're in this situation the same way that we were when we were quote unquote primitive man and women. All this stuff is going on and most people have no freaking idea what the hell is going on. And we live like this. You're looking at all this stuff and you have no idea what's going on. right?
Yes.
Right. And that's where we're at. So again, we're back to being told what to think. So Fox News tells you this, no different than one narrative. CNN tells you this. And many people go into despair. They just check out. They become complacent. They become frustrated. As this graph says, you know, these are the diseases, the mental diseases that they start exhibiting: anxiety and insecurity and discouragement, and irritability. No different than that, you know, caveman sitting there not knowing what to do with that saber-toothed tiger outside, right? Or what he would do. And that's where we're at. And this is where those in power want the mass of humanity. They want people in despair and anxiety, or split left and right.
Yeah.
All right. So how do we get out of this? That's the question. How do we get out of this? How do we get out of this confusion, despair, and suffering? Okay, what are the choices you have? What are the choices? Let's go to our team. What are the choices people have? Jill, what's one choice people can do, or a potential choice?
Well, one would be to join our movement.
Right, but if our movement didn't exist.
If it didn't exist, do drugs.
Do drugs, there you go. Jason, what else? I can't hear you, Jason.
I was gonna say you got to build a movement too, but yeah.
No, but I'm saying the majority of people out there,
right.
What are they doing? They're doing drugs.
They're doing drugs. They're depressed, and they're floating around on the wind. They're hope. What are you gonna do? You're gonna hope if you don't know what to do, and hope is no good. It's not gonna get. You know what I mean? Hope is nice to have, but it's not a solution.
Yeah. Right. So they follow Obama.
You hope for the best. You're floating in the wind.
Yeah, hope for the best. Right. What are the other things people do? Maria, what do people do if they don't know what to do?
They think that there is no future. They think they cannot change. They cannot change their life. They just hear what mainstream tells them, and they think there is no possibility to change. But if you think there is the possibility, you can change your future.
Right.
But if you do anything,
Maria, what I'm saying is right now, before we go there, what are the things people are doing? One is they watch mainstream media, they take drugs, right?
Video games.
They just have hope. They pray to God, Messiah, or someone's going to come. That's fine. But I'm just thinking the alternatives. Robin, what are the things people do in the middle of all of this despair? What are the alternatives?
I think there's two things. Either people become angry and aggressive, or they become isolated and alone.
Right.
You know, it's pushing people to extremes is what's happening, and that's what people.
Right. And we can see that by this graph. This is what people are actually doing. Okay. They're getting angry. They're getting nervous. They go, when COVID was taking place, when people got their checks, a friend of mine was telling they all went shopping for Louis Vuitton bags. Okay. They think being like Kim Kardashian is going to save their lives. Okay. Or something like that. But essentially, people pursue these dead end ways, or they decide they're going to run for political office, or they're going to support this candidate or that candidate, right? Thinking that the electoral process is going to do something. Okay. And there's many other choices, and we can ask people, let's see what people are saying online. So people online, the question is in Instagram, what are people doing? Addiction, someone says, right? They do yoga. They do religion. So here's the choices. Yoga, they do addictions. They pray day and night. They follow some guru, right? They resort to alcohol. They smoke weed, okay? They keep their head in the sand and run around with their head cut off. What else? Okay. They try to meditate, okay? So on, all right? But you can see that, look, having grown up in a culture of gurus and meditation and all this, I can tell you that does not solve the problem. You may get enlightened and you may feel good like taking an aspirin, and you may have a quote unquote a different viewpoint of the world, or you can go see a self-help teacher or one of these coaches, or go to one of these Anthony Robbins things, give him $3,000, right? And get all pumped up. whatever, right? But it doesn't address the fundamental issues, because none of these people want to address the fundamental. Oops, we're getting feedback from somebody. I just want to turn that right. So what is our movement? What our movement recognizes is the following, that when you look at this mess over here, let me go back to this diagram, which is a very powerful diagram. When you look at this mess here, that there is a way to figure this mess out, okay? And that figuring out that mess is called the science of systems. And you'll see a bunch of books I have there. It's not just to put those books up there. I hope you buy them. But it's more to compel you to recognize, we call the book back here Systems Health. The goal is to enable you to understand that there is a way. And it's called the science of systems, the knowledge of how systems work. About 10,000 people in the world who are advisors to the elites, who go to places like MIT, Harvard, et cetera, know this science. They understand the science of systems. And they make it inaccessible to a surgeon who's working all day. They make it inaccessible to a guy who's welding in a warehouse all day, or to a mother of two, like Jill, or who's working in the oil fields, or to Maria if you're working as an activist, right? A lawyer. In fact, they don't want people to learn the science. Because if you learned the science, you would be no different than a surgeon who wielded a knife. You could help really save life, or you could be a robber to kill life. Right now, the elites use that knowledge of systems, system science, to manipulate and subjugate people. In fact, to end up so the rest of us see this world and we can't understand it. But you know what? They understand it quite well. They understand the mechanics. They understand oppression. They understand how to unleash a pandemic. They understand how to manipulate elections. They understand how to create a left and a right, a pro and an anti. So you get so confused, you're at a point you don't even know what to eat. There's so much information on diets. Well, should I eat green vegetables or not? That's where people are at. Should I drink milk or not? Do I eat cheese or not? Everyone is totally fucking confused right now. Billions of pieces of information, yet no one even knows what to put in their mouth. Do I do a ketogenic diet, or do I eat carbohydrates, or do I do this? Do I vote for this guy? Do I vote for that guy? What's going on in Ukraine? And so on. So this is where people are at. And many of you know my entire life has been because I grew up in a caste system of India, which was based on oppressing people. I grew up seeing my grandmother observe your face, a woman who had no degrees and could figure out what was going on in your body precisely and heal people. And she never gave the same foods or the same herbs to the same people. It was personalized precision medicine is what we call it today. How was she able to do that? Why was there a caste system? And what was the system of medicine she practiced? You see it all comes down to the word system. So if you don't know what a system is, if you don't know the mechanics of how a system works, you're basically going to be in this state the rest of your life. And you'll be voting for the left wing or the right wing, or you'll be complacent or like despair, or as Maria said, you'll be watching this news station, that news station, and so on. But the science of systems, which we've organized, which took me 50 years to put together, to organize in the way that any working person can learn it, and Jason will talk to you about his experience, who works full-time, or Jill, or Maria, or Dr. Robin, who works as a surgeon. This has enabled people to understand how the world really operates, and what, more importantly, what you must do for your physical health, with your relationship, everything. And so I'm going to go to Jason first. And Jason, maybe you can share where you were in terms of your knowledge, what you learned from the science, how it helped advance you. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, when I first came in, I was worried about COVID because I found Dr. Shiva in the time of COVID. So, you know, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm a regular guy. So it did have me frightened, especially at the beginning. Then I found Dr. Shiva, and he actually taught me about the immune system. Then he went on and taught me about the vaccines. He taught me about the interferon system. And I really understood not only to take vitamin D3, but why? What does it do for you? What's the difference between C and D3? So I learned all these things and knew them for sure. you know. So he gave me the confidence that what I was doing was right. I didn't need the jab, you know, nothing wrong with the jab. We're into freedom. I mean, there is a lot wrong with the jab, but you do what you want. You know, you don't need it if you're healthy, but all right. So
Jason, talk about how it changed your thinking.
Well,
not so obvious establishment and those. Tell us.
Yeah,
how you
opened my eyes to a lot. The not so obvious establishment, big time. But it really just taught. It really, like you says, teaches you how to think, because you're actually learning systems, and you know. And I started to see all these things, you know, on the news, and in a different light. Is it, you know, see right through it, you know. January 6th was one of the first times. Dr. Shiva was one of the first ones to see that before it happened. You know, we were planning on going, and he said, this doesn't smell right. And then, you know, I figured it out on like the 7th or 8th. This was a setup, you know. Trump actually told them to go down there, and there's just so much to that too. But yeah, I mean, it just, you start seeing things clearly. I've never been so clear. And you really, Dr. Shiva is a great teacher. You should take the class, because if he, you know, I never went to college or anything, but he lays it out there so you can understand it. You got to pay attention, of course, and you can take the course more than once. But if you want to learn it, it's pretty simple. He makes it pretty easy for you. But yeah, I'm just confident in my thinking right now.
All right, Jason, let me go to Maria. One second.
Yeah.
Maria, you're just started taking the course, and I remember you'd seen a lot of my videos before, but tell us how it's changed your perspective. Go ahead, Maria. You're in Sardinia. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm Sardinia, and I start to follow you, Dr. Shiva, when the pandemic start, the false pandemic start, and when I started to see your video, I understood that the immune system, that our body can fight against the virus and against what happened. And the most important thing to do, and have a good immune system, and a good immune system comes from the good food and vitamins like vitamin D and K2. So you have to eat vitamins in order to have a good immune system and fight against the virus. And when I started when I follow you, I understand these things that I didn't know before. So it's the great work you have done in order to mentalize and to teach the people how do they have to carry on and fight against the virus. Okay.
Yeah, so Maria, I think the key thing that you're sharing is that when the pandemic occurred, this was in early 2020.
Yes.
And what was unfortunate was all of these opportunist scumbags like Robert Kennedy, like Malone, and we call them scumbags. It's a technical term because we teach in our course, because these people are the reason no change takes place. And we'll come back to, maybe Jill can talk about the not so obvious establishment, you know?
Yes.
But one of the important things is to understand that it is a not so obvious establishment.
Yes.
What you learn in system sciences, they are the reasons that no change takes place. And we'll come back to that. But for you, and what our system science taught us is just taking one jab doesn't address the whole issue of the body's immune system.
Yes.
So we taught, our movement was the only movement that taught people the immune system.
Yes.
We taught people stuff that most doctors don't even know. And we educated people bottoms up. So it wasn't us telling them what to think, but we started teaching them how to think, right? Because you started understanding how the immune system worked. So let me go over to Robin. Having said that, we'll come back to you. Dr. Robin is a surgeon. Oops, we just lost her. So we'll go to Jill. Jill, we'll wait for Robin. Go ahead, Jill. Why don't you tell us your experience, where you were, how this got you out of confusion and despair, and how it really helped frame your life to think about things.
Well, I did. Sure. I was partially aware that there were problems when the pandemic hit, and was a bit in confusion and despair because I'd already been on a journey realizing that conventional medicine was untruth and that your body is kind of a system. I'd been learning that on my own. And so when the pandemic hit and I realized we were being lied to, and the mandates were coming, was falling into the what can you do, depression, worry about the future. And then I found Dr. Shiva when we were listening to the election integrity movement that was going on right after the 2020 election. And he had said something on his presentation about there was something that could be done. And so I decided to check him out at that point. And it just gave me a lot of clarity because I think I'd already been seeing that the problems weren't being solved and that it was very divisive. The last 10 years, politicians haven't solved problems, at least. They just argue back and forth and undo each other's work, and people, give up, or they're becoming more and more right and left extreme. But having the class, you could see that was by intent, and they want that on purpose, and to give you the tools to recognize it and to do something about it is what I like.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. Let me go over to Robin. So, Robin, as a surgeon, you talk to us about how the systems approach, how in medicine they don't really teach you a systems approach, right? I think surgeons have a little bit of what I found, Robin, was that surgeons are vastly different than the basic MD. Surgeons, as I shared with you, have to solve a problem, right? They work with their physical hands. The MDs, typically, they don't even have to see patients anymore. The nurses do all the work.
Right.
It's sort of just input, output. So maybe you can talk about how the systems approach in medicine doesn't there, and how our movement can actually help even any medical professional. Go ahead, Robin. Oh.
Right. I certainly learned a lot. And thanks, Dr. Shiva. I certainly learned a lot. And system science is exact science. And they don't treat this, they don't teach this to us in medical school. And what we find is that if you can problem solve anything.
All right, Dr. Robin's having a little bit of technical difficulty, but we'll go back to a couple of people and we'll wait for Dr. Robin to come back. But essentially, go ahead, Robin. Are you back? Oops, we lost Dr. Robin. Go ahead, Robin. Robin, are you there?
Yes, I am. I do apologize. So,
Yeah.
System science allows us to problem solve anything, and understanding what takes away from problem solving is the distractions that our United States and our world is interjecting. And these distractions are trying to keep us away from focusing and problem solving and actually getting to the truth. System science allows us to absolutely be able to figure out any type of system. Like I was talking about, a healthcare system, your body, a business. You can problem solve anything by using system science.
Yeah, and one of the things, Robin and everyone, some of you may be aware, let me just bring up this other slide. If you look at the people that were attracted to our movement, we found out 65% of them were apolitical people, okay? Which means they didn't care about politics. And I think many of you were like that, right? And the establishment wants people to be, quote unquote, apolitical, not do anything. But we brought out all of these people onto the ground. 30% of them were Trump or Bernie or Democrat or Republican. They were in the split. 5% of them were the not so obvious establishment, right? And we'll talk about these people. But just within the last year, you can see all the things that just in 1.5 years, the system science approach is a winning approach because you can look at a situation, you can actually understand what the hell's going on, who's the real enemy, what the real problem is, and what the real solution is. And so, for example, if you look at all the gains, when you talked about Jill, they'd heard us when we did the election systems integrity, or Maria, when we were doing the vaccine. It was this movement that ran the first international vaccine conference. This scumbag, Robert Kennedy, and that's what he is. He makes money. He's like no different than the people who run the Breast Cancer Foundation. No different than people who show pictures of babies, who are starving in Africa, and cha-ching, they take money, right? They don't want to solve starvation. They don't want to really solve anything. They live in highfalutin places like Malibu, and they tell everyday working people what to do, and they just absorb money. Robert Kennedy has literally stolen, you can go to his website, the rhetoric of our movement, but he corrals people to do bullshit. He endorsed Hillary Clinton 3 times, right? He had a big party at his house telling people not to be vaccinated, but everyone had to be vaccinated before they went into his house. And then the poor idiot supposedly blamed his wife. Oh, my wife controls the house. Really? So we exposed Robert Kennedy because we showed that he has done shit for the movement except mislead it. The second thing is, this movement is the one, we took a systems analysis, we went to the courts, and we figured out that it is government who has an unholy alliance with big tech. Everyone remember that, right? Up until then, the right wing was big tech, big tech, big tech. And the left wing was big tech is good. We found out that it's the government, left and right, Republicans and Democrats, Labor Party and Tories, who have a relationship with big tech to surveil every citizen on the planet. That's profound. That's what system science teaches you. It doesn't let you get lost in making fun of Twitter or Google. They're just pawns. The governments of the world own them. So they launder censorship through them. And we showed that in our own court case, where they censored a United States Senate candidate because I exposed the crimes that they were doing. And we can go on and on and on, but you can see our movement wins. We're the ones who expose Elizabeth Warren as actually a fake Indian. We're the ones who forced her to take a DNA test. We're the ones who expose GMOs at a scientific level. We're the ones who started the Fire Fauci campaign. I didn't see Robert Malone and I didn't see Kennedy or any of those guys. We started it. We're the ones who told Trump in 2020 to get rid of this guy, and Trump didn't do anything. You can see that when you take a systems approach, you don't need to be an astrologer. You can see where things are going to go. You can see, like Wayne Gretzky, where the puck is going to go. And that's what we need. We don't need people coming, 2 years later and trying to be heroes like Robert Malone. Where the fuck was this guy when the actual issues was going? He was making money from big pharma. And now he wants to do all these talk shows and say, oh, yeah, really? You didn't know what mRNA was about? No. Joe Rogan, another scumbag, another misleader. During the GMO fight, he was pro-GMO. Now and then he was pro-vaccine, and then he becomes anti-vaccine because he sees his ratings fall. He needs his ratings to go up, like Maria, you were saying. So all of these people are opportunist scumbags. And the reason the way the world is today, it's not because of some boogeyman up here. It is because of the not so obvious establishment. In every country, you will find the not so obvious establishment. Yes. In India, we had Gandhi, right? In the United States, you had Martin Luther King, who basically misled Black people, okay? And now we have Bernie Sanders and AOC and the Kennedys. The Kennedys are institutionalized, not so obvious establishment. And you have the Trumps and the people who are being pulled into the Trump MAGA phenomenon. Many of us supported Trump. We gave him a lot of money, but we realized that his talk didn't match his deeds. And what you'll see right now is they'll actually create, oh my God, his house got invaded. Oh, this happened, that happened. It's all noise. And what we want to emphasize is we got to build this bottoms-up movement among working people. We need to recognize there is a science. And if you don't learn this science, you're going to just waste your time. You're going to be in despair. You're going to be like these people, not knowing what the hell's going on. So you have to begin by learning the science. And you can see what's occurred with our movement just in the last year and a half. Over 250 million people all over the world know about us. We've had close to 400,000 people join us. 55,000 people have gone through different types of training. So the issue is, what are you going to do? Because we need to have enough people wake up so you can become your own gurus. So you can become an agent of change. You don't have to go to some ashram, or you don't have to sit under a freaking tree and meditate and do yoga. I do that, but that is not the way out. It's a way of escaping. The way out is you have to understand system science. So let's go over to Maria, because it's 2 a.m. over there. Maria, can you tell us how you're building the movement there in Sardinia, the bottoms up movement, and
Well,
how you're taking this knowledge to help you there? Go ahead.
yes, I'm talking with other people who are working. They have seen me when I talk to the people in the square during these 2 years, and they came to me yesterday and told me, I've heard you talking in the square, and we like you. How do you think? Because I think that the politics who want to do politics must change completely the way to do politics.
But what you're doing, Maria, just to not to interrupt you, which is very, very important, is you are not using mainstream media. You're going on the ground. You're going and you hand out our flyers. You talk to people, right? You're not. You're going directly to people, right? Into the town square. That's what's important to understand. Yes.
I last year, I went to the television, RAI in Italy. We have RAI, and I told to the journalists that they were telling the false information. And how can you carry on telling false information about vaccines? Because the young people were dying, and my video have got 2,000 or 300,000 of visualization, and so a lot of people in Italy have seen my video. And now I'm trying to start from my little island, and trying to understand how the politics what politics people have done since today, and what we can change in our little island to improve the life of all of us. And you must come to the people and ask them, what do you need? What do you need in order to improve your life? And you don't have to but do politics and earn money. You have to lend money to people and do without money, because you have to help the people.
So Maria, I think in Italy, a lot of people know Italy has gone through, you had the left, you had Berlusconi, you had a lot of corruption, you had then the 5-star movement, you've had all these different movements, but the key thing, I think we want to emphasize what you're doing that's awesome, is you're going on the ground, you're talking directly to people and building up this bottoms up movement. And Jason, I know when you first joined, I mean, Jason, as you mentioned, you don't have a background in engineering or science, right? But the course was accessible to you, right? You could and then you went on the ground, and you're going to be starting a chapter up in Maine. So maybe you can just tell us how you took this knowledge and you started exercising it on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Dr. Shiva, made it easy to learn. And I'd like to say the big difference between this movement and any other movement is it's really two things. You have the education, and some people just come for the class and they get educated, and that's it. Other people really want to try to change the world for the better, and they hang around for the movement. And but the big difference is there might be some movements out there that have good intentions, but they don't have the smarts behind it. And you got to understand the world we live in. They're going to make these people look stupid so fast. They're going to make them look crazy. That's what this whole Trump thing is about, if you ask me. They're going to see who takes the bait, and they're going to, people see. So, this movement has the direction, it has the education, and because you got to be smart. People don't know how to protest anymore. They've gotten you off the streets for over 50 years. So Dr. Shiva understands that. And the other thing I want to say is when we talk about building a movement is the only way out, Dr. Shiva is a smart guy, but that's not a theory. That's history. That's Dr. Shiva looking at a problem and seeing how it was solved in the past. It has to be beyond left and right. It has to be the people. And, so hopefully you get what I'm saying. Because
Yeah. And Jason, I think one of the things we need to understand, it has to be the movement bottoms up. What happens is let's talk about this, very important. And then we'll go to Jill, is there is something called the not so obvious establishment, NSOE. And one of the things that's the hardest thing, it's, we have I think a 12-part course. One part of the course is really try to teach this in a system that's called the disturbance. If you're trying to achieve any goal in life, there will be disturbances that come along. The great religions called it the devil, okay? And the devil will come in many, many ways. And in fact, if you read the Bible carefully, it'll say the devil will appear as the most beautiful guy. In fact, he'll be the most handsomest person. He'll speak so articulate. You will want to follow this individual, and it'll come from above, right? And if you look at the not so obvious establishment, they're typically parachuted in. The Kennedys, as though they care about everyday people. I'm sorry, you can't get into Hyannisport, okay? Everyone can come to our office here, okay? Or, with all due respect, Martin Luther King was a wealthy bourgeois Southern Baptist minister. He wasn't your everyday black person like Malcolm X. The entire March on Washington was orchestrated by the Kennedys and the Southern National Christian Conference. It was a circus, Malcolm X said. They had a nice speech. They had the guys wearing the white hats, and it was all organized, okay? And it was about having a dream. Most black people are talking about, what are you talking about? We don't care about dreaming. We want issues here and now. And many of the fundamental issues of civil rights were never addressed. The real issues of racism were never addressed, which was infrastructure in the inner cities. So what Martin Luther King did was he made it about something else. They made it affirmative action, which actually pitted poor blacks against poor whites still to this day. It didn't solve the infrastructure issues. Mahatma Gandhi in India never addressed the fundamental issues of oppression. For 70 years, India continued suppression. And right now, in the medical freedom movement, this scumbag, Robert Kennedy, watches everything we do. He's calling top-down protests. It's not bottoms up. And this is what the not so obvious. So you'll see in Europe, they do these big, massive protests. Kennedy comes in and then he leaves. He doesn't know shit about a protest. I was in New Jersey. We won that. We stopped the bill because we built a bottoms up movement. He came in later in his SUV and did a drive through and was upset that we were militant and we scared the shit out of his Democrat friends. And this is what our movement teaches. Because until we understand the not so obvious establishment, as Jason's talking about, it's like it is the fundamental thing to understanding how we win. Everything we have today, the confusion, the despair, the suffering, is because first, people don't know the science of systems. So if you want to start, you better learn the science of systems. And we've made it accessible. And by the way, I used to teach this for thousands of dollars. We gave it away for free and no one wanted to take it because people are brainwashed. People don't want to give it when you give it for free. So we said, okay, we're going to charge you $100. Then people want to take it. Okay. So you can give us some money because it can pay for this lights, infrastructure, all of this. So we made it completely accessible. If you want to go take it at MIT, you can pay about $8,000. Okay. $100. And you can give it to all the youth for free. So there's no issue with money. And this knowledge you can't get anywhere else. Jason, you were able to understand it, right? You didn't have an engineering degree. You didn't have a math degree. You got it, right? Maria, you were able to understand it as a lawyer. And Jill, you come from an engineering background. Jill, how did you find that knowledge? Did it dovetail with what you learned? Did it expand it?
It expanded it. I've never used it for people systems. I'd only looked at it as chemical systems or mechanical systems. That's what I was trained in. A pipeline, basically you have to have pumps and you have the pipe and you have a storage outlet at the other end. You have to meter it. I understood it that way, but to apply it to actual human systems was a novel, enlightening way of looking at it.
Yeah. So let me explain what Jill is saying. So there are 9 principles that everyone will learn about how systems work. 9 principles. Okay. 3 of those principles are called three fundamental laws that affect everything in the universe. The movement of information, matter, and energy. We call it transport, right, in engineering science. Then there is a conversion phenomenon of taking something from one form to transforming it. And then there's the thing that sustains things, structure, transport, conversion, and storage. Now, if you take a general systems theory course at MIT, you will learn this. Now, those are three among the 9 principles. But what Jill is saying is, what I was able to discover was those 3 phenomena, transport, conversion, storage. Guess what? They show up in another complete world of knowledge called the indigenous systems of medicine. In India, they call it Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And then what I uncovered was, and this is really a big discovery, is that politically, it occurs in the phenomenon of freedom. Freedom is a movement, transport, like Vata. Conversion, which is the idea to take ideas and find truth. That's the scientific method, truth. And then the last part is health. Your health is the thing that gives you the sustenance to fight for freedom and truth. You see, truth, freedom, and health is not a slogan. It is actually a scientific phenomenon that you need, just like you need air and water and food. Society needs truth, freedom, and health, transport, conversion. So these are 3 phenomena. So the reason I want to encourage everyone to take this, because you start having the tools. Kristen Falvey said something very nice here. Because she came from I think, social services background. And Kristen said, what did she say? Let me find her quote here. I'll find it somewhere. But Kristen basically said, when you take the course, you really understand the nature of all systems. So Jill came from understanding chemical systems. But once you understand the core, you can apply it to every system on the universe. And so that's why this picture is so profound here. These people are actually looking at the web of political systems, probably health systems, and they can't make sense of it. And in the modern world, if you don't learn system science, you're basically screwed. I can put that in writing. One of my mentors, Jay Forrester, who died at the age of 99 as a professor at MIT, he wanted to teach system science at the kindergarten age. And very interesting, those powers made it very difficult. You have to wonder why. They do not want you to learn the science of systems. Because if you learn the science of systems, you will then figure out real solutions to real problems. You won't be left-wing. You won't be right-wing. You won't be confused. You won't be despair. You won't be sticking your head in your sand. You'll actually become a warrior scholar. You'll become a fighter. You'll go on the ground. You'll become a scientist. You'll become like Maria, going on the ground and handing out stuff, right? You'll become like Jason, who does work full-time, but then finds time to go start a local chapter. You become a true agent of change. And as we said in the beginning, without the knowledge of systems, you're basically screwed. I hate to say it. And that's why my journey from India to inventing email, to MIT, to fighting, the commitment was to make this knowledge accessible to you and then let you be your own guru. Don't follow these gurus. You should become your own guru, but you need the knowledge. And that's what this is about. But if you don't want to do this, fine, but don't complain, because it's here. The movement for truth, freedom, and health is here. You have amazing people like Maria and Jill and Jason and Dr. Robin and others. And we have tens of thousands of these people who are emerging all over the world. But if we can create a community and elevate your consciousness, we'll have a movement, a real movement, not something that's coming top down, not like where 1 million people show up to protest and then leave, controlled by the few. That's how most of these protests are, like the March on Washington. It looks good on TV, but it's all bullshit. It's not organic, bottoms up. It's genetically engineered food versus organic food, okay? It's engineered. It's not bottoms up. So someone says, who's in Florida? We have a lot of people in Florida. Email. So anyone wanting to know more about the movement, go to truthfreedomhealth.com. The way we conduct ourselves is we have this model called, let me bring it up here. I think, Jason, you're referring to it, is a model that's very different. It's learn, teach, and serve. Anyone in our movement first goes through the learning. But guess what? We don't let you get away. This is not a parasite culture. You just learn. Okay, I learned. Thank you very much, Dr. Shiva. A lot of people do this, and then they leave. No, you learn. What do you have to then do, Jason? What do we force people to do?
We want them to teach and serve after, pass it on. Be
right.
Like, yeah.
So everyone, Maria, you just started learning it, but Maria will actually start teaching it. Because when you teach, you learn. And therefore, I don't have to be involved all day long, right?
Yes.
It's not like some, health coach. So we have created an environment. Jason teaches a course. Jill teaches a course. John, everyone teaches. And then we want people to serve. Serve meanings you help build this movement. Maybe you can write a blog post. Maybe you can help new people come in. You can call somebody and help them understand concepts. And if people are looking for community, that's what we're building. Because without community, this is where you're headed. You're headed back to this. You're headed to anxiety. You're headed to insecurity, discouragement, irritability, distress. And this is where those in power want you. Because when you're in this mode of all this despair, irritability, guess what? You're going to sell more antidepressants. You're going to sell more drugs. You're going to get sick. And I think I've shared with you guys the number one reason when they did all the health studies, they looked at why they looked at the people who lived to like over 100, all those people. And there were 3 reasons why people lived to over 100. Guess what the number one reason was? Anyone know?
I think I know.
Hold on. Here's
Family and
Christian says he has a good
love.
point. Hold on one second. One of our warrior scholars says the information weaponizes you to teach those around you. So in that way, the more of us that learn this, the more this information spreads bottoms up and decentralized. No one can stop us. That's what this movement is. But the number one reason people lived long, number one reason was
living in Sardinia.
in Sardinia. Well, in Sardinia, and they had good friendships, community.
Yes.
Number one reason. Second was everyone drank a local alcohol they found.
Yes.
Some local fermented drink. It wasn't like guzzling gin, or it wasn't like guzzling 80% proof. It was like some local alcohol, 3 to 4% alcohol. The third was they all got exercise. Food and vitamins and supplements weren't even on that list. Number one reason people live long is community, community, community.
Yes.
And that is how you stop this. And that is what so those people join our movement, get healthier. They do. They get mentally clearer. They get smarter. They can think about things better. They solve problems. They get on the ground and they go start meeting other people, because we tell people to go hand out cards, right? We don't want people to be on social media. So if you want to get healthy, if you want to get freer, and if you want to understand the truth, it's here for you. We're not here to convince you. We wanted to do this talk today with Maria and Jill and Jason to inform you that anyone, got a couple hundred people watching tonight. If you're seeing this, you got to become a part of this movement. It's for you. And you don't have to live in despair and confusion. Frankly, it's the only way forward, because in the modern world, it is the modern science of systems that will change the world. And you're understanding it, coming together, building a community, and creating that wave of consciousness. That's a movement. So before we go, I'm going to take some phone calls. And those people on Instagram, I'm going to check out because I got to use my phone. Okay. But we're going to take some phone calls, and I'll put the phone number up here, and we'll get a few phone calls we'll take, and you can ask our panel. So I'm going to put the phone up here. So go ahead. If you want to make a phone call, call in. If you have a comment, anyone who's a warrior out there, I'll ask a question. But the talk here is to talk about that our position as a movement for truth, freedom, and health is the only path forward for you to get over this confusion, despair, and suffering, because we offer the framework of the science, the community, and the movement. So you have no excuses to hide your head in the sand. So anyone who wants to make a phone call, call. Let's go to Maria. You want some closing comments you want to make? What other points would you like to make?
Well, you asked how can reach 100 years, and I told you live in Sardinia because we are one on the fifth one.
Hold on 1 second. I'm going to take this call. 1 second, Maria.
Okay.
Hi, go ahead. Who is this? Hello.
Yes, this is Andrew.
Hold on 1 second, Andrew. Hi, hold on 1 second. I have another call on the line. Go ahead, Andrew. Tell us your comment, or Andrew, tell us your comment or your question. Go ahead.
I just have a question. I just wanted to ask if you're going to watch the Moment of Truth Summit that's going to be on August 20th and 21st.
The what? Can't hear you. Hello?
The Moment.
Can't hear. Let's go to the next call. Hello? Who is this?
Hi, this is Marjorie,
Hi, Marjorie. Where are you from?
Florida.
Okay, Marjorie, what's your question or your comment?
I have a daughter that has 3 children, and she is very, very frustrated because there is no community. She lives in Tampa, and she's overwhelmed. And I was listening to you, and I thought, this is what she needs to do. She needs to get active. And this is all very new to me. Not that I haven't heard your presentations before, but I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, great. So let me answer your question. Very nice to have you.
Thank you.
So first of all, to everyone listening, the question was, how can someone get involved? Well, you can go to truthfreedomhealth.com. Go right up there. You can contribute whatever you want. If you don't have any money, you can just join as a member. We have a supporter level. And if people contribute 100 or more, they can become a Warrior Scholar. And I can walk you through all the things people get because I think it may be worthwhile to do this. Let me go to our website. So if you go to truthfreedomhealth.com, and again, let me go over here. So if you're seeing on the screen here, let me bring it up. I'm going to share my screen. So if your daughter goes to truthfreedomhealth.com, and it's a very simple website, but it says Truth Freedom Health, get educated or be enslaved, if you can see that. And it says empowering you with the science of systems, infrastructure, and community to build a bottoms-up movement to change your life, your community, and the world by uniting working people. And what we've asked people to do is to contribute.
Right.
So when people contribute, the way we've done it is if people can't contribute anything, if people contribute nothing, they still get access to the site. They get access to papers and how to become an activist. Obviously, if people contribute more, they can get different tools. Let me explain what I mean by that. So we have an entire course structure here, okay? And the course, it involves all these gifts. So people, when I used to teach this, people used to spend thousands and thousands of dollars, but what we've done is we've made it very accessible. So people get access to the entire scientific breakthrough that we have, they can understand. They get access to the online course they can take anytime, and then they get a lot of people who support them. They get access to a book, multiple books, which help them teach how systems can affect every part of their life. But most importantly, one of the tools that we give them is this tool called Your Body, Your System. Let me go to it. Your Body, Your System lets people figure out, get out of the confusion. We used to charge hundreds of dollars. We just give it away for free. And what Your Body, Your System lets people do is to understand their body as a system. So they can understand the same forces that run the world of politics, the same forces that run an airplane, also run your body. And you can figure out what kind of system you are. Then you can find out where your system is off balance and how you can use food, activity, sleep, exercises could get back to your own balance. So that's one of the powerful tools. And what's powerful about that is right now, the reason people are confused is it seems like every 2 years, a new diet comes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eat raw food. Now just eat grains. Eat fats. That's a big. Eat keto, right? It's a different diet, and then a whole bunch of products come out. But the reality is everybody is unique. Everybody's body is unique. If you're living in Eskimo up in the Arctic, I don't think you should be eating carrots all day or drinking carrot juice, right? But yet these people put that kind of information out. If you're living in the desert, you probably should not be eating high-fat foods, okay? Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And so on. So yet you have all this bullshit out there, the latest diet, and then you have this huge, big vitamin industry which pushes that. People in Sardinia get lots of sun. They eat lots of seafood, right? They have community. They're not taking a bunch of pills of vitamins, okay? They don't need to take vitamin D3. If you're living in New York and Brooklyn and you were told as a Black person that you should stay home, you better probably start taking some vitamin D3 supplementation, okay?
Right.
So the issue is the right medicine for the right person at the right time. That's how you break through the confusion. So what we've done is we've organized these very, very powerful tools, okay? And it took me a lifetime to put this together, and we give it away for those people who want to contribute something. When we used to give it away for free, no one took it, okay? It's really weird. So,
Yeah.
so we give these tools. We've created an educational platform for health, and then we've created our own engine that's independent of big tech. So you can have conversations and not get thrown off. Then we have created all these activism tools. So if people have never been an activist, they can get on the ground and learn how to build a movement. They can educate others. So that's what we've done. So have your daughter get up and be part of this. And we have lots and lots of people in Florida, so she doesn't have to feel lonely. Anyway, let me take my next call. Thank you.
Thank you. Bless
Yep.
you.
So we have another call that's coming from New Jersey. Hi, how are you?
Yes, hello. Name is Victor.
Hi, Victor. How are you?
Good, good. I have a question. So I'm trying to understand. So you're talking about a difference between left and right. I'm an independent, just so you know. And I hear your message, and it's a great message, and I like it. How do you distinguish that between like what Andrew Yang and all these people are selling as? Oh, we don't like the difference between left and right. We're moderates. Like there's this. It seems synthetic. I mean, bottoms up tells me it's real, but the other one seems synthetic. But I don't know if everyone gets it.
No, you're asking. What's your name again?
Victor
Victor. You're out of New Jersey, right?
Patterson.
Okay, I that was the first place I came to the United States when I landed in 1970 as a 7-year-old kid, Patterson, New Jersey. So
Great.
Okay, so you're asking a brilliant question, Victor. So Victor's question is, he said he's not Democrat, he's not Republican, right?
Right.
And he's independent. And how and Andrew Yang is talking about beyond left and right. Andrew Yang, great. He is what we. So basically, Victor, when you understand the science of systems, remember I talked about 3 of these 9 principles. One of the principles is called the principle. So in systems theory, imagine you have an airplane going from San Diego to Florida, right? It's trying to go there, and there could be different disturbances, right? Wind, shear, rain, and the pilot is constantly adjusting, okay, to those disturbances. If you're trying to achieve a goal in life, like you're trying to lose weight, you'll have your friends come and say, "Oh, Victor, why are you trying to lose weight? You know, it's okay to be like 200 pounds overweight. Look at me. You know, I'm good, and I feel great. You know, I'm 300 pounds over." You have people disturbing you, right?
Yes.
Well, in the political world, those in power know that 50 to 60% of the public is done with the 2-party system. In Massachusetts, 10% of the people are Republicans, 35% are Democrats. I don't know what it is in Sardinia or Maine or other
In
places.
Sardinia, 30% are right and 35 in the left.
Yeah.
And someone are independent, but there is no difference between right and left, even in Sardinia and in Italy too.
Right. So
they are the same.
They're the same. But the issue is people are gravitating, Victor, to become independent. And the establishment knows it. So what they're creating is guys like Yang, okay?
Right.
And what Yang's goal is to talk about, he'll even probably steal our slogans beyond left and right. And he'll try to talk about some, like you said, use the word synthetic. It'll be like genetically engineered version of an independent movement, okay? But what we're talking about is so different. We're saying, look, forget even left and right and even independent. What we're saying is we have to go down to the atomic level and understand the systems of oppression. And what history shows is there is the same science that you use to understand how an airplane flies, how your body works, is the same science that you can use to understand how the governance system works and why we need freedom, which is a movement of information, matter, and energy, transport, why we need the phenomenon of conversion, truth, and why we need infrastructure for health, you see? So based on that, what we find is that the not so obvious establishment, okay, is that force that the slave masters always create when the slaves start rising up to talk the talk, Victor, but they will never walk the walk. So for example, if you read Shakespeare's all about the not so obvious establishment, right? Polonius in Hamlet, right? To thy own, Polonius is telling Laertes, to thy own self be true. but the guy's the biggest dishonest scumbag. Okay. So the Andrew Yang's, I mean, he went to Phillips Exeter. He's a bourgeois, right? He's never worked a day in his life. Okay. And he has no idea of working people's existence. So his solution is UBI. Okay, we're top down. We're going to give everyone $1,000 a month. That's going to solve the problem.
I have another point. What gave it away to me is that they said they're flush with money. And I'm like, where's that money coming from?
Right. By the way, if you look at our movement, let me show you this, Victor. Look at all these things we did without, and Kennedy used all of our rhetoric to make millions of bucks. The guys, that's another scumbag, the entire Kennedy clan, him in particular, okay? But look at all these things, Victor, we did. I mean, I represented myself in court. No lawyer. It was me against 7 lawyers in federal court. We had victories. No news covered. Sucker Carlson didn't cover it, CNN. But we exposed how government launder censorship. It was our report that was fully taken up in Arizona, which was the only report showing that signature verification was flawed. You can do a lot with everyday people. You don't need all this money. So our movement is, we have a guy called Frank, he helps us do electrical work, right? We have people do writing blog posts. I don't know what these people need all this fucking money for. Excuse my language. What are they doing with all this money?
Propaganda.
Well, they're paying themselves. They gather all this money. They have these nice shindigs. They go down to Martha's Vineyard. They hang out here. They do $100,000 little shindigs, catering. It's all bullshit. When I was out in Hollywood, I saw all this crap. It's just taking money from everyday working people and giving it to themselves, flying in their private planes, doing some nice stuff in Aspen, banging each other. That's what they do.
Yeah.
So
we get squeezed. At the end, I believe, even with universal income, I look at Patterson and I see actually we've elected independents in the past couple of years. We've gotten away from the Democrats. And I noticed that, I know people will take this as a Republican side thing, but it seems like, and it's really neoliberal, neocon, the establishment, they like to squeeze our pocketbooks.
Right.
Create these, counter systems or systems that maintain people in a certain state of dependence. And that's going to be UBI as well. I don't see any.
Well, this is happening in every country. In India, the politicians, when they run for office, give TVs and laptops and bags of rice to the poor. So people don't want to work. And I'm sure it's happening everywhere. So it's basically to make people lumpen proletariat.
Yes.
You see, they don't want the proletariat rising. And they actually, whenever they attack quote unquote socialism or quote unquote communism, or they talk about, the left talks about, they're the people, the social democrats on the right talks about attacking them. None of them are actually talking about working people. They're talking about lumpen proletariats. When they say workers,
squeezed, crushed, dependent.
Yep, yeah. Exactly. Thank you. So we have a call from the United Arab Emirates. Let's take this call. Hello, this is Dr. Shiva. Who is this?
Yeah, hi, I'm Dr. Vikram.
Hi, Dr. Vikram. How are you? Can you speak a little louder so we can hear you?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Study.
Go ahead, Dr. Vikram. You should turn down your radio in the back, but go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Wonderful. Yeah, good morning from UAE.
Great to have you.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll totally off it. Yeah. Good morning from UAE, and it's a great news to always hear you and all your team. I want to say some important thing about the governance, because I'm one of the scientists from the Global Union of Scientists for Peace. This regarding consciousness, you are touching to elaborate a little bit on it. Is it okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, wonderful. See, what I have been blessed to do work is on the discovery of sacred sites as coherent centers distributed throughout the nations. So what has happened is a correlation has happened between the ancient sacred centers and neurological systems of the brain. Now, whenever the coherence, the main centers are distributed across India and also the ancient places like Mecca, Jerusalem, and certain places in all other continents. Now we are getting chaos. So this science is absolutely what you are talking is all about that. Though we have developed so much in science and technology, we have failed to upkeep the coherence in societies. And really have been wishing to tell this. And it's a lucky day today I could connect with you, sir.
Yeah, Crystal just put a note up, Vikram. She said she's been trying. Crystal is one of our leaders. She said she's been trying to get a hold of you. So
yeah,
if you can email, Crystal and connect with her, you should come to one of our Thursday or Friday meetings. By the way, everyone listening, every Fridays, Vikram and everyone listening, we do an orientation, and everyone is invited. And I'll put it up on the banner. So every Friday, you can go to vashiva.com/orientation and sign up. Okay. We have people from all over the world, 11 a.m. or 8 p.m. EST. So our goal
Thursday, Dr. Shiva, though.
What's that?
It's on Thursday, not Friday.
Thursday. I'm sorry, Thursday. Thanks, Jason.
Thursday, okay.
Every Thursday, 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. So it'd be great for you to come, Vikram, and share your stuff with what you're talking about.
More detail.
Yes.
And also, is it a video chat? I can be seen? Or I can present something?
Yes, on Thursday, it's a video chat. Yep. Or connect with Crystal, and then you and I and her can have an initial conversation.
That's absolutely great. I want to tell a few minutes, it's really vital for our world. And what you have been doing is, sorry?
Go ahead.
Yes. It's really amazing things that are happening, and we are in the most, best times in the world, because what the work you and few other leaders are openly able to take on the apparently so huge administration is actually a sign of nature bubbling up with these pleasant surprises.
Yeah, well,
we need to really.
I think the reality is, in some of the ancient Indian and mythological texts of all cultures, they've said that this period in history will be a time where there will be great chaos and darkness, but it'll also be the biggest opportunity for people to awaken and get enlightened and become full human beings. And the knowledge that we brought together, it literally integrates engineering systems theory of the West, it integrates indigenous medicines of the East, and then it integrates political theory. Because what's Vikram, what's happened for a long time is the gurus and the saints tell people to go under a tree and meditate all day, okay? And then you get enlightenment and great. Well, that doesn't work, okay? It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for a lot of people. It didn't even work for Buddha. Buddha, after he got enlightened, said, shit, I got to go back and help others. It's great, I'm enlightened, but now what do I do? Okay? So that doesn't work either. So it's not sufficient that you become this glowing, beautiful human being. What are you going to do for the other 7.2 billion people who live in squalor? Okay? So,
absolutely.
So you can't just be, doing yoga all day and getting wonderful.
No, it's not like
I know that. But I'm saying,
the thing is, the coherence generated by these guys. Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think, to me, the slogan I like to say, because, at some point I'll do a talk, I'll teach people how to do the various meditation forms. I'll teach people that. Yeah. And I've had probably all the experiences I can talk about that all the saints talk about. Okay. But to me, that was not as profound, because the typical thing is, watch out for your karma. Don't do bad karma. To me, warriors are willing to risk their own karma for the advancement of others. To me, that's real service. Okay? Yogis want to sit under a tree and worry about their karma. It's a very slight aspect of being a human being. To me, the fullness of being a human being is interconnecting with your fellow humans collectively and uplifting everyone together. So anyway, Vikram, we'll talk, but I'm glad you called. Okay, but there's some deep stuff we'll talk about. Thank you.
Crystal, how do I get in touch with her? It's email.
Yeah. So are you watching from home in the chat? So
Yes.
yeah. So you can email me. Okay.
Okay.
Or well, you have this number, right?
Okay. Yeah, I have this number.
Yeah. So you can
WhatsApp.
you can WhatsApp that, or you can go to vashiva.com.
Okay.
And you can just. But I think Crystal has your. I'll tell her to call you, but keep an eye out for her. She's out in Nebraska. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you.
All right. It is. It's getting. It's 9:19. It's like 3 a.m. for.
Yeah. Exactly.
Our good friend in Sardinia, Maria.
Okay.
Yes.
So, thank you. So, oh, we have Frank Licata calling. Frank, how you doing? Frank? Hello?
Hello?
Frank, are you calling?
Hey, Shiva, just joining late.
Okay, Frank, we're finishing up the show, but good to have you. We're just wrapping up. All right, so let's wrap up. So I think, so in closing, the big takeaway for everyone is the following. It's very simple. And again, this is just to tell it like it is. It's not really to force you guys to do anything. If you are in despair and you're in confusion, you don't know what the hell's going on, well, our movement exists. If you want community and you want to connect with people like Jill and Jason and Maria, and we have people all over the world, then the movement is here. If you want to really understand the science to liberate, we're here. And if you want to truly build a bottoms-up movement, we're here. And if you truly want to not be fooled by the devils and the enemies like the Kennedys and like the Trumps and like the Faucis and all these people, but the real not so, then we're here. But if you want to sort of wait until the next chaos occurs and then be reactive and then wonder what the hell is happening, then you had your chance. You have no excuses now, okay? But if you want to use your intelligence for yourself, your family, your community, and you want to become a leader and you want to really use the modern science of systems, everything's laid out for you. You don't have to go to MIT. You don't have to waste 20 years. And for that matter, we don't want you to waste your time going left, right, quote unquote, being independent. We want you to become part of a movement where you get educated and you're no longer enslaved. And that can only happen with the science of systems, period. There's no other way. It's like saying, how am I going to fly a plane? Well, you have to understand some aeronautics and you got to take a pilot's exam. There's no other way. If you want to build a movement, you got to come to Truth, Freedom, and Health. If you want to go to other places, you're going to end up in a dead end. And then 20 years later, you're going to wake up a little bit older, a little bit more, even more confused. But we're here to really save your life in a fundamental way of giving you direction. So let me wrap up with Jill. What would you like to say to everyone, Jill?
I would say that this is really like a life-changing opportunity. Since I've been doing that, I've been able to reach out to complete strangers to have these conversations and teach them how to think just through that conversation in their, conversations that are most people would consider very controversial. I've been able to go to a county commission meeting and address the commission about concerns, meet with the county clerk and get them to go through this same kind of a conversation of finding real solutions. So it's been super helpful, and I don't regret having done this. And I
think Jill, you made a very good point, which we didn't cover. We teach people. We literally have tools how you can have conversations with your family and friends that you may have been disenfranchised by, right? Mm-hmm. And literally have conversations with them to think beyond left and right, right? So if you take an issue of masks or no masks, or vaccine or no vaccines, or racism or no racism, we teach people how to think beyond left and right, find out what the real problem is, and then bridge that to find out what the real solution is.
Yes.
Right. And we have a whole tool that lets people do that. So you don't have to be fighting with your loved ones or your family. You can actually bring people together as long as someone's reasonable. And we have a methodology to help people do that.
Yes.
Someone says, I like Dr. Shiva and I still like Trump. Look, I've met with Trump. He's a nice guy. I probably play golf with him, probably have dinner with him. Right. But the guy doesn't know what the hell's going on. OK, He surrounded himself with a bunch of idiots. And you have to ask why he did that. He should take the course. Everyone should write to him, tell him to take the course. And if he had that, he'd have some infrastructure. Right now, he has no infrastructure. He surrounded himself with deep state people. Look at who he hired, right? He hired all deep state people, and he really screwed himself. Now, did he do that purposefully? Did he do that accidentally? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter to us, because at the end of the day, what happened? Fauci didn't get fired. Nothing happened to Hillary. $6.9 trillion got printed. CISA got created, which was a censorship infrastructure, which he signed into law. So what you come to the conclusion, whether it be Trump or Obama or Biden, they're basically puppets. They may be nice people, but it's not what it's about. But thank you, though. All right. Go ahead, Maria. What would you like to end with? But Jill, I think what you just said is very interesting, because I know in Texas, people, there's more conservatives there, but I'm sure you've had a lot of issues, right, with people on the left and the right and trying to bring them together.
Well, actually, I'm in New Mexico, but we're one of the only conservative counties in New Mexico. Our state is very liberal. This area is very conservative. So it's an interesting dynamic.
Okay, great. Let's go to Maria. Maria, what would you like to tell everyone before we close?
I would like to tell that True Freedom and Health is a movement like a family, and the people must know that they are not alone. They can have a lot of answer to a lot of questions if they enter into vashiva.com, and there is a lot of things to learn and understand what is really happening and what is happening in the past, even in India with Gandhi, and which is the not so obvious establishment, and understand a lot of things. So if the people enter in this movement can understand a lot of things, I can really understand and improve his life, of course.
Thank you, Maria. Maria, you're by the way, we're in October 7th and 8th, we're holding a big summit here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Everyone's invited. Yes. And then in January, we're going to host one in India, physical summit where you can meet people. And we're going to see chapters coming up, but we also want to, Maria, you were going to do something in Sardinia, right? We're open to doing that in the winter.
Yes, I would like it. It would be great. It would be great.
Okay, let's organize
here
that.
In Sardinia. A lot of people want to know you, Dr. Shiva, a lot.
All right. Yeah, I was supposed to go there to a science conference to present, and I had something else come up, but it's a beautiful place. I may not want to leave. All right.
Must do, because we have 5% of the population more than 19-year-old.
Oh, I say. Wow, a lot of students.
I'll try to. I'll show you.
Okay.
Many.
All right, Jason. What would you like to say before we leave, Jason?
I would just, as in closing, say, well, take us back to the beginning when we started looking at that picture and all that confusion, and just say, who doesn't need a little help figuring that out at this point right now? Why not connecting with other people? But we all know it's confusing like that on purpose, and so, and then the only other thing I wanted to say is just connecting with other like-minded people. It's very important because they want you to be alone at this point. I believe that's what a lot of what COVID was about. Even if you were working at the time, you had a mask on, you couldn't even talk to your coworkers. It was crazy. So, yeah.
So I think, Jason, we'll begin where we ended, and I want people to really look at this picture and recognize this is where the world is. You have all this stuff going on, and people are confused and in despair, and the movement for truth, freedom, and health is truly the light, and it'll teach you the science, the modern science of understanding complex systems. It's taking all that knowledge that was at MIT and all those great places, and we've made it accessible to working people. And we've integrated with indigenous medicines, science, and we've integrated with political theory. And this science is being used against you every microsecond. And if you don't learn this science, you will be enslaved. That's why our slogan is get educated or be enslaved. So it's number one. So it's here. We've made it accessible. It costs pennies. You probably waste a ton of money on all sorts of other stuff. Okay. That's number one. Number two, there's a community here of people, and you need community. You know, build immunity. What did I say? Build community, build immunity. Okay. You want to build health, build community. We have lots of great people here. Okay. And then the last thing is we're building a wave of consciousness. You raise your consciousness and we create a movement. That's what a movement is. It's a frequency of everyone starting to get these things. All right, everyone. This is great. Maria, thank you so much. Thanks for staying awake. Jill, thank you so much. I know it's Friday. I saw your husband come over there. Hope everything's all right. Tell him to, we thank him for letting him give a little bit of your time. And Jason, I know you have to work in the evenings. You're a hardworking guy. And Dr. Robin had some technical issues, but we want to thank her. And to all of you, the best thing you can do is go to truthfreedomhealth.com, contribute. You can give $1, you can give nothing, become a member, and come to our orientation every Thursdays. We do Thursdays at 11 or 8, but you have no excuse anymore to live in despair, suffering, and confusion. Our movement exists. It is the light. And it's here for you so you can be the light and you can be your own guru and you can help other people. So that's the good news, you know? So we're at a very, very exciting time. And I hope all of you take advantage of this because it's really your movement. It's your opportunity to win. Thank you, everyone. You guys hold on. I'm just going to end this here.